we are live. We are live, everyone. Welcome everyone that's we're tuning in right now. This is the Sankofa Project's virtual chat. This is one of three virtual chats that we'll have, and I'll give the other dates for the other chats. And while everybody's coming online, we have some panelists here that we're going to talk to. We have some attendees on Zoom. Thank you all for being here. We are also live on Facebook under Niki Lopez Creative, but this conversation will be uploaded to YouTube and also available on the WISE pages as well. So just jumping into it, my name is Niki Lopez. I'm an artist and curator, and I'm working with the Lee YMCA for this Sankofa Arts Project, incorporating some of the history of Sistrunk into the new Y that is being built. And along with George Gadson, and we're going to have some other artists. And so these are some people that are a part of the Arts and History Ambassador team, who, we're looking up the information, and I'm going to pass the baton to someone else to introduce themselves as we get settled into the conversation. And I'm going to pass it to Miss Mary.
Hello. Nixie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Mary Russ-Milligan. I'm a Broward County trailblazer, and I'm a born native of Broward County. I had a twin sister. Dr. Sistrunk was actually the doctor who delivered me in the first Provident Hospital. So this project is very much a part of my legacy. So in order to know where we're going, we have to know where we came from. So thank you.
Thank you. And you could pick someone else to introduce themselves. Gabe?
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here. Gabe Ochoa. I work for the YMCA South Florida and really closely working with the Lee YMCA Mizell Community Center. And it's very exciting. We have tours on Tuesdays. So if you want to tour the building and see how it's coming along, just let me know. And super excited to be part of this wonderful group that is really looking into the way how we preserve the arts and the history within the building, as we know that's extremely important as we are on sacred land. So Dr. Kymrae.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me in on this tremendous panel. I am truly honored to be here, particularly because this YMCA is going to be named after my grandfather, Dr. Von Mizell. And I'm just very honored to be a part of this and excited. We have a lot of rich history that could easily be lost and somewhat has been lost. So it's nice that we are kind of trying to go back into the archives and relocate some things that we need to bring to light in this climate that we're in currently. And so I'm just super excited and honored. Dr. James Sistrunk actually delivered my dad as well. And so they were, good friends, Dr. Sistrunk and my grandfather. So just very excited about this. Thank you.
You're going to pick someone else.
Oh, my turn?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's have Derrick Davis.
Okay. Yes, my name is Derrick Davis. I'm currently the president of the Trailblazers of Broward County. I'm also on the Broward County Historic Preservation Board. I'm the retired curator from the Old Dillard Museum, the past head of exhibits and programs at the African American Research Library and Cultural Center, and just involved in many projects in the community that have to deal with history. And I'm going to pass it to George.
Thank you very much, Derrick. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm George Gadson with George Gadson Studios. I am very honored and pleased to be here with this esteemed panel and to be a part of this Sankofa project. I've got work throughout South Florida here, particularly on Sistrunk, the African American Research Library, the Urban League, Sankofa bird there on Sistrunk as well, and just kind of all over the place. And one of the things that I am honored and glad that I'm able to use my skills and my talent to actually, in some way, preserve history that is so important in our community. So I'm so pleased and honored to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I think everyone went. So, and we have Evelyn. Good evening, Evelyn Chasen, community health worker from YMCA of South Florida. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. And we have some attendees in the Zoom. So if you have any questions, comments, feel free to add it into the Zoom chat and as well on Facebook. So I'm going to be hopping back and forth. And so we have a quick slide to kind of walk you through a little bit of the project. We have Sunny saying, great job, Gabe. Okay, so let's see. PowerPoint, share. Okay, so this is the Sankofa Project, the Sankofa Arts Project. There's a number of things going on. Like I said, part of it is history, talking about history, talking about legacy, recording it, incorporating some of it into the arts of the new Lee YMCA that's being built on Sistrunk as we speak. And there's a number of things. There's going to be about 6 or 7 walls with artwork. There's also going to be some community engagement. This is the first chat. We're going to have another chat on the 25th and another one on March 3rd. I think I'll look it up. But we have a number of things. So we're incorporating arts, we're getting out into the community, and we're sharing those stories and educating ourselves as well as everyone else. So that's, and these are the panelists for tonight. We have George Gadson, Mary Russ-Milligan, Derrick Davis, Dr. Kymrae, Mizell Hill, and myself, Niki Lopez. This is the YMCA. This is just a drawing of it, but this is what's being built. If you want more on the project, you could go to whatsyourelephant.org/Sankofa Arts Project, and you will see more information about the project. You will see links to the next events. And as we move forward in the project, there'll be a lot more information on that page. So these are the next 2 chats. So we have the next chat will be Thursday, February 25th at 6:30. And that is going to be combining oral history in a virtual space. So we would like for the community to come out. That will be a Zoom meeting. So it would be, as many people register for the Zoom will be on the Zoom call. But that's a space that we really want to invite the community to come out, bring a picture, share a story, share something that, of you growing up, sharing something that you might feel personally that is history, is your personal history, is your personal legacy, is a part of the community. This is a space where we want to talk about that. As much as we would like to put as much art into the Y, there's only, how many walls can we do, right? So this is going to be another opportunity for us to, for everyone to share their stories and be heard and recognized and to learn. So I love learning about, there's some history that I do know, being in the community and doing a lot of different projects with the Y and different people. I've worked with Derrick a couple of times and different people on the project, but there's also a lot for me to learn as well. So it's, I'm honored to have this opportunity. And so I hope everyone's able to share and give and learn. The next one will be March 25th. And so we're going to have a talk with the artists. So right now I'm one of the artists. I'm, curating a lot of the work that's going to go into the space as a permanent art piece. We also have the principal artist, George Gadson, who's creating a 2-wall installation, but we're going to also incorporate some other artists who's going to be working on different parts of the wall. So that would be a great time to see who those artists are, see a little bit about what they're creating, and ask questions, share, and so you'll have that opportunity on the 25th. So the Sankofa Arts Project is a Lee Mizell YMCA Community Center's Community Art and Engagement Project. I'm curating it, and it's meant to engage the community in arts and incorporated all the arts and the stories that we're sharing into the new building, like I said. And so we're hoping to preserve as much history, to learn, to really create a space of community at the Y. Y has been in the community a number of years, and now it's in a new space. And so those are things that we hope to accomplish there. So this is a little bit about the walls that we're working on. So art and history walls. The focus will be about the Provident Hospital, which is the was a Black hospital that was right on Sistrunk in that same space. The Lee YMCA that's been in the community a number of years, I think 70, but Gabe could correct me, as well as the Victory Theater. So the first set of walls will be, and we're going to find out after this slide. George is going to talk a little bit about his project and process that he's doing. Is going to focus on the history and legacy of the Provident Hospital. The second wall on the first floor that will be across from the elevator is going to have like a monitor displaying the programming of the Victory Theater, which is a black box theater, and other Y programming. And that space will also have a lot of art incorporated, and we're going to bring in different types of art, such as fabric art. We're still building, so we don't have anything to show right now, but this is just sharing with the community what we're up to. The third is going to be a word art wall. And so this is a wall that based on, there was, George actually did the community engagement and asking the community, what does the community mean to them? What does the Y mean to them? And they gave a number of words, which you're going to see in a few. And we're going to create an art piece to honor all of those words from the community. And I challenge everyone on the call today to, as when we see those words, what other words do we feel should be a part of that? So this is an opportunity for you to give your voice, your word, and to be included into what's being created at the Y. There's also going to be an MLK I Have a Dream wall / gallery space wall. So on the second floor is about an 80-foot wide, large wall space where a portion of the wall is going to be developed to the I Have a Dream. The Lee has an annual honoring that they do where they honor advocates in the community. They have a guest speaker each year. And so we're going to be on a space where we're going to see images of the former keynote speakers, as well as people, the other awardees, as well as, as we grow every year, there's going to be a space to add. There will also be a gallery space. So the other part of the wall is going to be dedicated to a gallery space that could be used in future programming to have art exhibitions and other programmings for the community. And we could showcase local artists, national artists, a lot of things going on there. So that would be there as well. There's also going to be on the third floor a Victory Theater signage. So many people in the community grew up going to the Victory Theater. And so this is paying homage to that space. It's going to be a 250-seat black box theater with a lot of programming. The director of the theater is Kathleen Dean. And so we have a lot, that will be planned in that space. So we're going to have a nice signage to really welcome people into that space. There will also be a History of Victory Theater mural. So that's going to incorporate some of the history of Victory Theater, as well as some other things going on. There's, there's actors from South Florida. There's different parts of history that we could incorporate into that space. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of the standing point of where we're doing. Okay. So this is one of the walls that, the word art walls. So there was a golden sledgehammer demolition that had members of the community, board members, And there's two spaces, we'll see the second slide, where people were asked, how do you envision the new LA Lee YMCA Mizell Community Center can impact our community? That was the question asked, and all of those words were given: community, game changer, history making, the future, legacy, ownership, unity, moving forward, monumental, hope, intergenerational, giving, love, a haven, progress, new beginnings, creativity, unstoppable, consistent, progress again, journey together, hope, faith, healthy lifestyle, positivity, family, and excellence, opportunities, revolutionary, passion, what a blessing. So that was one of the worlds. And the other one was, what has the LA Lee YMCA Family Center mean to you? So this again is also from the community. Difference in my life, living life more abundantly, family, friends, and love, exercise, meeting new people, good outlet, life changer, good people, family progress, improvement of health, love of each other, physical weight, staying focused, our kids' future, friendship, health improvement, a nice wholesome place, health, fitness, window of opportunity, dream maker, an opportunity, unity, community engagement and family, progress, a blessing, lasting friendship, love, strengthening communities, fellowship, love of culture, hopeful history, going beyond the norm, friendship, hope, promise, life-changing laughter, the power of love, many, many blessings, the new LA Lee YMCA, this power is God's, moving up, empowered, togetherness, family, heart of the community, health and friendship, bless, healthy life, God bless us, bless, and RIS family. So these are the words that were contributed. And so my question to everyone who's listening tonight is, what word will you contribute? So we've heard the words from the community members of what they have already contributed. We are working with an artist that is going to create a nice signature piece as you walk into the Y that's going to have those words incorporated to the piece. And so whatever throughout the conversation you have a word, throw it into the chat. Like I said, I'll be checking Zoom and the Facebook, and we will incorporate that into the wall. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to George Gadson, who's going to be talking a little bit about his project and the process surrounding it.
Okay. All right. Give me just a moment here.
Sure.
Perfect. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm George Gadson. I just want to kind of share just briefly some slides that I put together for the folks at the YMCA as I was approaching them with some concepts, and just to give you a little sense of how I operate. And some of you who are on this particular Zoom, you as an artist, you're aware of kind of the process, but whenever I know that I have an art project that I have been asked to do, I just sort of began to do some preliminary work, some preliminary research, start to incubate, if you will, some thoughts and some ideas, not coming with any preconceived notions whatsoever. So as I moved forward, I then went to the historical society, and as I'm doing all this, I'm thinking, okay, now what is going to be my objective here? And it really is to pay tribute and celebrate the rich history of Provident Hospital, and to ultimately create a work of art that will be enduring and lasting for really, really many, many years to come. So that being said, you know, there were wonderful photos that were available to me, and I won't read through all this information, but the inspiration basically came from the research with the hospital itself, Providence was a general hospital, the history, of course, through the Historical Society and knowing what took place there as far as here in South Florida, back in the 1930s when some Black men were in a car accident and they were taken to Broward General, and because of segregation, they were refused service. So that is what prompted one of the business owners during that time who actually just decided that Mrs. Aldridge to launch a campaign and to raise funds in order to acquire a place where Blacks can actually be treated. And Dr. Mizell and Dr. Sistrunk, both physicians here in 1937, Dr. Mizell was a native of Dania. They were the ones who spearheaded the beginning of this hospital, and I call it the Center of Medical Care for Blacks here in Fort Lauderdale. Now, this is kind of where my mind kind of really went a little bit out there, if you will. When I think of medical, and when you think of medical health, et cetera, and of course, knowing the historical significance of, and I'm going to say this, not so much the building as much as the site, the historical significance there, I started thinking, okay, ancestry, DNA, and how the art, whatever that ultimately would be, how that art can really connect to science and how it connect to medicine and to health. So I started going through a few iterations of ideas, and of course I did some research on the DNA, and I'll show you more later. But here's just to give you the context. This is the inside of the lobby. And if you're looking just straight almost to the center, there is a wall here to the left, just right in the corner, is where the work that I will be doing will actually be placed. So the wall sculptures, as I started contemplating okay, what might look good on a wall as far as without it being too literal, at the same time giving a suggestion, if you will, of medical. This was one concept which wasn't the one that was chosen, but just I share this with you so you can understand just sort of kind of where I was going with a few ideas. Here, the XY chromosome, you know that, and folks, I am not a scientist, or neither am I a person that's have acumens, if you will, in medicine, but I learned a little bit more. I did pretty well in science in elementary school, but this was really eye-opening for me. So in doing the XY chromosome, and here was a model potential sculpture that would go on the wall, which again, the process is a process. Ultimately, and then of course showing actually this particular wall, how this concept might look on the wall. But again, we moved forward with another process, taking these two and making, I said maybe a grouping of 3 of the potential design with this form, but that wasn't the one that was the bingo, if you will. Here's the bingo. So doing the research, and okay, again, medicine, how do I connect medicine? How do I connect the DNA and all of those things without being too literal? So if you look at this, ladies and gentlemen, you really see a stethoscope in a very abstract way. At the same time, in order to make this sculpture, and by the way, this will be a wall sculpture that would be done in bronze, that would measure approximately about 5 feet in height. So it's a pretty, for the particular I showed you earlier, it's a pretty significant size. If you recall that Miss Niki has shared with you some of the words that were given by you, the members of the community, and taking those words and actually embedding them into the sculpture itself, so that there is that sense of connection based upon your feedback. Now, I will say this: art is a process, and as an artist is creating the work, he or she remembers some of the feedback that they received from members of the community. And I'll share this with you. I did a sculpture in Tamarack many, many years ago. I think it was in 2005, I believe it was, and did a community outreach just as we're doing here, getting feedback from members in the community, just to kind of get a sense of what they would like. And of course, the day of the installation, and by the way, it was an egret. City, the Tamarack, very in the natural environment. It was an egret sculpture that I did. And there was a lady that showed up as I was installing this sculpture. And her statement to me was, I thought we were going to have dolphins. And I kind of chuckled and I said, well, ma'am, it wouldn't be appropriate for this location. And I said that I don't believe you were a part of the group in terms of the community feedback, because I said, I'm good with faces. I said, but thank you for your feedback. At the same time, those who were in the part of the meeting, they did see some elements of their suggestions. So where I'm going with that is this: the work that Niki is doing and the other artists are doing, with gathering information, doesn't necessarily mean and guarantee that everything and every word that's said is going to be a part and you're going to see it. But looking for common threads, that's the key process. That's the key thing that we're doing here. So this is, and I haven't come up with it. I have a title for it, but I won't do that until probably after I sign the piece itself. So what I want to share with you further was just, here's that wall, but more closely showing the image. And some of this will change. The heart will still remain, but the images of the mom and dad, it was suggested that we remove this and just simply have the heart. So you will see that, and I think I have some photos here to actually show that. So what I wanted to share with you is the process, of how this model, if you will, now is really and goes into play. And it's quite an undertaking. But this is all clay, modeling clay. And I built what is called an armature. As a human body, the skeleton specifically, here I'm talking medical now, but as a skeleton is the support for our muscles and everything. So it's considered an armature. So in order for me to build my form or my sculpture, then of course the styrofoam I'm using here, because it's lighter, it serves as my armature that allows me to begin to create the piece itself. Here is an example of actually taking the letters and actually impressing the letters into the clay. Unity was one of the words that I think you saw on the words that Niki had shared with you. Here is some of the tools I'm using. The clay, of course, is here, and then you see little bits of, you see the E, the G, the A's, and the C to the right there, the word legacy. Now, I would tell you this, folks, these words may very well change. So, but just know that this is an iterative process, and that's the way it is with the arts. Here's the heart. Um, you know, the hearts, the clay is being formed there. Actually, I started with two hearts, one this size and one this size. And then of course, as I'm doing it, I look at the proportions to be sure that the heart is the right size for the overall piece itself. And this is the bottom of the stethoscope. Now, so these are the beginnings of, it's by no means is the work done. We've got more things to do, but once all of this is done, there is a process where what you see here, I will make a mold of this 5-foot sculpture. The mold would be a rubber mold, and then that rubber mold, inside that mold, I will actually pour wax inside it. So just imagine a 5-foot wax sculpture that now, after the wax is cast, I'll cut it into pieces, probably 10, maybe 15 different small pieces. And each individual wax piece will be covered with a refractory type with silica sand and a mixture thereof. And while the wax is in there, we place it in an oven, and then the shell is baked. And once it bakes, the wax that's inside melts out, and it's called the lost wax process. So now the shell is hard. And I should say this, it should be hard. I've had some accidents happen too. When we think the shell was hard, and then the bronze metal, the bronze is heated to about 2,800 degrees, poured inside the hollow shell where once the wax was. And this is a life lesson. The shell has to be ready, has to be cured, has to be prepared, because when the heat comes, and if it's not right, it will just bronze metal and molten metal will go everywhere. So I really love focusing in on that, because that's the way it is with us and our lives. We've got to be tough. We've got to be prepared for whatever life brings us. You know, the heat will come and challenges, etc. But what we're made of in terms of intestinal fortitude will determine how we can survive and move forward. And this speaks, I think, also in terms of just the legacy and the history that really is here in our community, and particularly at this particular site. And I believe that is the last image I have. And I just want to thank you for your time. Okay, Ms. Niki.
Thank you. Thanks, George. I'm super excited to see how that's going to turn out, and love that you shared so much of that with us. Thank you.
Thank you. And
before I get into the chat, let me just go through some comments. So I have a text from Lorraine Mizell. Said Dr. Sistrunk delivered hundreds of babies during the 40s and 50s. And then we have a couple of people. Let me see if there's any comments or questions. Just trying to see. And Derrick, I do see Miss Lillian is on in the attendees. Do I want to want me to still bring her up onto the panel, because I know you wanted to invite her to be a part of the conversation.
She's very, very important in this conversation.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to, I think, add her to the panel. I think it does. Oh, it could. Let's bring her in. Tara Montanero says, wow, Mr. Gatson, that's an amazing process to create such a beautiful piece of art. I cannot wait to see it.
Thank you.
Yes. And then let me just check the Facebook real quick. So I saw a few messages. So we have Miss Sylvia saying hello, Nikki and guests, Patricia West, Connie McKnight, hello everyone, Scott Strawbridge, hello. Diana Melian saying good evening, everyone. So yes. So, okay, so let's get into the conversation. And everyone here, I feel everyone has a unique perspective. And so some of the things that I would like to, for everyone to have an opportunity to share is, I guess we could just go through, we'll start with what is legacy and why is it important? So I won't put them all the questions together, but what is legacy and why is it important? And if everyone can have an opportunity to share, what is legacy to them, why is it important? As well as why are they personally involved in this project? And so I'm going to pick on Derrick Davis first, because I know he's just so ready.
Oh, I didn't have to go first that time. Good.
Yeah, I can go first. And legacy is important, and because legacy is your history. And one of the things I think about when I was getting into history, because when I was young, I really didn't care that much about history. But when I, because of jobs, got involved in it, I had to kind of like search, what did history really mean? And one of the people I like to talk about that kind of opened my eyes to what history is a scholar named Cheikh Anta Diop. And he actually talks about cultural identity and talked about the three factors that make cultural identity. And there's the historical factor, the linguistic factor, and the psychological factor. And just briefly, the linguistic factor is not really language. He's actually talking about an inborn conversation that people of the same culture have. And that psychology is like the principles that they live by. But when he talked about the historical factor, he says that history is the glue. It's a glue that makes a culture and brings that culture together. So when we think about, and I don't think a lot of times we think about that is what actually links you to the other person is history. That's how we form a link between ourselves is through the history. And that history, because when he talks about history, he talks about not only events, but even he talks about the physical way you look. All those things are like the glue that hold people together. So that's the first part of why history is important, because it's like a glue. Now, there's another African concept, an Adinkra symbol that's called, and I'm butchering the name, but it's called Nkansu Kansu. And Nkansu Kansu is a name that it means to chains. And it looks like two ovals that are connected by a thing that looks like an hourglass to me in the middle. So they're connected, but it's like a little hourglass thing that holds them together. And for what I learned about this Nkansu Kansu, what it represents is this ancestral chain. The people of the past being one of the ovals, the thing in the center being now the connection, and the other oval being representing those who will come in the future. Because I think when we think about history, what we don't see or don't get at the first is we always look at history as just the past, but when you look at it from an African standpoint, history is this never-ending story. And it's a never-ending story because the past connects to now, and then it connects to the next generation. So history, and like Diop saying, is the glue. It's what connects one generation to the next generation. It's the things that are inside of them that they kind of hold to and go from, like I said, from one generation to the next. So that's why I say we need to look at history as this never-ending story, not as it's a story, but it's not the story in the normal sense where you say it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a story that's never ending. So it has a past, it has a present, and it has a future. So the history is important because it brings people together. It gets that excited about who they are and why they are and what they've gone through and what problems they have to solve. So history is, to me, a very, very important aspect, but I'm not going to take up too more time than my small spot. But just think of history, and sometimes when I think of calling it history, because I know some people say, is it history or her story? And I always say the best way to think of it is history is our story, but it's our never-ending story, not it's just the things in the past, but it's that African concept where the past connects with now, we connects with the future. Even with their concept of ancestors, they believe that the ancestral chain is what you are now, 5 generations before you contributed to that, to make you who you are now. And you're going to become the ancestor of those who followed you for 5 generations. So that's why I say it's a never-ending story of that ancestral heritage being passed down from one generation to the next.
Wow, thanks.
Niki,
That's why we started with you.
May I chime in on what Mr.
Oh,
Davis
absolutely,
said?
absolutely.
And that's why legacy is important. Because what we are doing today, folks, even before we showed up here, and what we do in our communities and you do in your communities, you're creating history and you're creating a legacy so that the young men and the young women, when they come after us, they have patterns, if you will, and knowledge to follow. Several years ago, when the Trailblazers had asked me to do the Sankofa bird that's there on Sistrunk, the concept there was to, of course, the Sankofa bird representing looking back in the past, and usually you see the Sankofa bird with an egg in its mouth representing the future, but looking back in the past, and their desire was, their being the Trailblazers, was to as best as possible, capture, and Miss Lillian was very much a part of that, is to capture the history as best as we could of Black Fort Lauderdale and those certain key anchors that later years, young men and young women can go and read the plaque and understand what were the pillars of the community, places of worship, economic development in the Black community, businesses, etc. So that legacy is about creating something so that people that come on after us can review it. I'll say one other thing, and then I'll turn it over to another panelist. There's one of my favorite quotes is, "Art is proof that anything has ever happened in the past." When you go to, you see wars, countries taking over other countries, what do they make sure they confiscate? That country's art, done by artists, because the artists are the ones that talk about and paint or create sculptures that talk about what happens during that time. So art is proof that anything has ever happened in the past.
Okay. And I would like to say that, Niki, I look at legacy also as having the true fact of its origin. A lot of time we go back, we review the past, and then we try to get to where we're going. But a lot of times in our history, which doing a lot of research with the Trailblazers, I found that a lot of our information are not factual. And so therefore, the legacy is not a true in fact itself, because you have to know the truth. When our rights and our legacy was stripped away from us, all of our records, our archives were just destroyed. When I do research and I'm going to these archive offices and I cannot find my family history or the history where I lived, you know what I'm saying? It's just not there. So I believe that in finding legacy is a thing of how you want to be remembered. And what I want my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to know is where I really came from, the true story of where I came from. And that is why I put so much passion into what I do, because it is so important to have the facts. And to me, it's not true legacy if we don't have the origin of it. So that's very much important in doing history and research. So that's my take on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone else wants to chime in?
Yeah, I actually will piggyback off of Miss Mary. I really appreciated her point of view, because it aligns a lot with my thoughts. And I mean, if you don't know who you are, where you're from, or how, what's in a name, how can you know your identity? And that's kind of what Derrick was talking about with the identity crisis, really. But we can recreate history, right? We can recreate it to tell the facts, to tell the truth. And there's these generations and generations of the stolen history, like Miss Mary was discussing. And it's just important that we make this, now that we have the opportunity, now that we have the flexibility to have a voice, and to be able, in this, like I said earlier, this climate that we're in, people are waking up, and it's just the time now to be able to recreate history so that we can, these future generations understand. And then we can create those word wall words into real life, the revolution, the unity, the leadership, the ownership. And so I think it's just important that, we do this, because that is, you can't talk about the future or what we need to do if you don't understand where we came from or who we are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And I just want to, we have another artist, Nilda Gomez, saying, very interesting, Derrick Davis. I named my studio the Legacy Art Studio. To me, it's a continuity of history and every generation that leaves a legacy to the next. We all have a responsibility to leave a legacy and to teach our children legacies of the past. And we have also Kaula Nuruddin, who's another artist. It's great to know that the Y is taking care to honor the community history and communal intentions for the future. So, and Miss Lillian, we'd love to hear from you. We do have Scott saying hello. It's great to see you, and thanks. Thank you for joining us. So, could you share a little bit about, what is legacy to you? What is history? Why is it important to you? Because you're also with the Trailblazers as well, right? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I am still on mute. I'm sorry.
We hear you now.
Yes. Legacy to me is the sum total of all of the experiences that each person in a community has had. When you talk about the legacy of a community, I've often said that you could have 5 children growing up in the same family, and they don't experience the same issue or the same event the same way. Each of us experience whatever we are experiencing in a different way from the next person. As I said, even with 5 children in a family, they experience something differently. When you talk about facts and truth, they're not the same thing. Something may be true, but not necessarily a fact. So we have to keep that in mind also when we're talking about legacy. When we are combining all of the experiences that people have in a community, gathering up all of the information and trying to discern between whatever you gather, what is true and what is actually a fact, then you can create a legacy that makes sense.
It does.
But until you do that, it's not going to work out so smoothly. So in our community, when we gather all the information we need to create this legacy, back to what Derrick says, we got to think about the past, we got to think about the present, and of course, figure out how we're going to mold these two things and make a future that's going to give to those who come after us a true, or shall I say, a factual legacy of what we have had in our community. I've been a part of each of these different things that you're going to be talking about. I worked at the Victory Theater. I worked at Provident Hospital. I worked at all of these places that you're talking about. I was there when the hospital changed into the Mizell Library. I participated on that program. So I've got a lot of information to tell you about where the Victory Theater came from. I can tell you the facts about it. You might know it's true that it was in the Black neighborhood, but you don't know what the real facts are behind it, because it was not a Black theater. It was not owned by Blacks at all. And I could give you the history of Victory Theater because I worked there when I was in 10th grade. Then I worked at Provident Hospital after I got out of college. And I could tell you some things about Provident and when it changed to the Mizell Library, quite a few things, but I can give you facts. You're gonna hear mine from a factual side of your story, Niki. And I would be happy to be a part of that, to give it. I'm excited. I want to do it. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm curious if you could share one of the stories, because like, for example, Victory Theater, and I know a lot of people are connected to the Victory Theater. Could you share from your point of view, why was the Victory Theater so important for the Sistrunk community?
Well, the Victory Theater was important because, first of all, that was the only theater we had. Secondly, the theater provided a venue for entertainment for people who wanted to, you know, sing and dance and that kind of stuff. It was a venue for African Americans during that time too. Uh, the Victory Theater was not a fancy place, but it was a place where people found entertainment that was outside of the bars, and especially for kids who can't go in the bars or couldn't go in the bars. And it was just a place where you could go and enjoy yourself. I'm sure there are some things I'm not really thinking of at this moment because I did not anticipate this question, but I'm sure as I think about it more, I could tell you some more things about Victory Theater, why it was important. But most important, like I said, was it served as a venue. Amateurs who wanted to display their talents, they would, you know, have a stage thing at Victory Theater here and there, you know. I have to say, the movies we saw, they showed them a whole week.
Wow.
But the amount that it took to go in to see the movie was very, very reasonable. And the movies showed for an entire week at the Victory Theater.
Wow. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Gabe, you know, don't want to leave you out here. Why is legacy important to you, or if you could share a little bit of why it's important to the Y um, to create legacy, to help to put this type of legacy into the building.
It's tough to come after
I know.
so many incredible feedback and obviously meaningful statements about that. Personally, history for me sometimes I think is kind in a certain way because it allows people to really intervene and create history they may not have had the possibility to have done so before for whatever reason, lack of access or because they weren't from the area. But usually when you are able to work side by side or follow leaders like those in the panel and many that I have had the pleasure to meet and be working for the Y and give us the opportunity to see what we can do to then become that into that flow of the past and present and future and be able to support as much as we can um, everything that's going on. And again, the other thing I think when I think about legacy is when I close my eyes at the end of the day and I think, what can I do now that can change the world and become to at least do a little bit that makes it a little better place? That's legacy. And I think we all are trying to do that right now. And it's, I mean, I'm overwhelmed with, you know, an emotion and extremely grateful to be just part of it.
Uh, Nikki,
Yeah,
can I ask a question?
sure.
And this is for Lillian and Mary Ross because they were here. They were from Fort Lauderdale, and I was down in Miami when they were talking about a theater and how important it was. And I know she said it, the movies ran for a week, but and in Miami we had theater also. We had a couple. We had the Capitol Theater, and we had the Lyric
The
Theater.
lyric.
Others, yes. And but as a child, going back to my childhood, you know, when you say theater now, you know, you go to the theater, you see one movie, and you go home, unless you sneak into another theater. But I remember the theater, that was sort of like a whole Saturday adventure for us as a kid, that you went in and you saw two features and cartoons. And then a lot of times you want to stay and see it over again. So going to a theater for a kid, that could be like your whole day because you had two full adventures. You had sometimes had a serial and a cartoon and a movie and another movie. And I was just wondering, was that the same type of experience they were having here in Fort Lauderdale, or was it like that they do now, where you go, you see one movie and you're out?
Very much the same. You could stay in the movie. The movie was a babysitter. And yes, and especially on Saturdays. On Saturdays, the kids would come to the movies early. Movies would start early, and they could see another movie in the cartoons. It was similar, Derrick. I'm pretty sure.
Thank you. I just wanted young people, because they say, "Oh, going to the movie." No. This was a whole day adventure.
Oh
It was
yes.
popcorn. It was being there with your friends. It was
Hot dogs.
hot dogs. It was an adventure.
The best.
Yes.
It was like going to like a Disneyland or something like that, because it was a whole day feature going
Yes.
to the movie.
I have Miss Lorraine Mizell. She's chiming in via text. She said Mr. Moreland, her uncle, collected tickets at the Victory Theater. That's what she was adding on.
Niki, I would like to say Miss Lillian was exactly right. The Victory Theater was truly a babysitting place. Because I was one of those little ones that got sent down to the Victory Theater when my father would be cutting hair and my aunts doing at the beauty salon on Fifth Avenue. So a lot of parents would either stroll down Fifth Avenue and go to the pool room or go to the Blue Flame Bar or, the little local grocery store or the pharmacy on the corner. So Fifth Avenue was actually the outlet for a family. So it wasn't just the corner of, for where the Victory Theater was. It was Fifth Avenue itself that really made the Victory Theater. So I just want to share that with you.
Yes, Fifth Avenue was a hub of the Black shopping district.
Exactly.
And
we need it back. They took our Fifth Avenue away.
We need that now. I want to send my son somewhere and just pick him up later. So I hope the Y is prepared for that babysitting service. Well, Miss Mary, I also wanted to ask you, because I know you grew up going to the Y and you're still involved with the Y to this day. What was it like, going to the Y back then? What was it? What is your opinion of why it was important to the community, or why was it important to you? And then to still be connected after all these years?
I tell you what, I really enjoyed as a youngster. I would look forward to those summer days. And of course, when you went to the Y, if you were under Reverend Dukes, there was a prayer that took place in every day. So he was a praying recreation director. So, there was a lot of strong values there. But I think most of all, I enjoyed going to get on the bus and have our brown bag lunches and going to Sunland Park and doing the May Day. We wrapped the maypole. So we had on our red and white, and that was something that we looked forward to. And we would compete against other cities, people from Deerfield, all throughout Broward County. So there was just a lot going on back then. There was a lot of memories.
Awesome. Thank you.
Niki, I could tell you some stories about the YMCA, and especially under the directorship of Mr. L.A. Lee, Lloyd A. Lee. Of course, I was there later on after that, I was at the YMCA with Mr. Porter Davis, and I think Derrick stole him and took him down to Miami somewhere. I haven't heard of Porter Davis since. But, when we were at the YMCA, Mr. Lee he was just like a father to everybody. And he established the High Y and the Tri-High Y, different, these were organizations within the YMCA, the girls and the guys, and we used to have dances on Saturday night, wonderful dances in that rickety wooden building that was up in the same spot where the YMCA is now. And we were there at the YMCA, and Oh boy, we had a good time until my dad came at 11 o'clock and said, go get my girls out of there because they got to go home. But we had a wonderful time at the YMCA with Mr. Lloyd A. Lee, and I think he instilled a lot of wonderful values in all of us who were fortunate enough to have gone there under Mr. Lloyd A. Lee. Like I said, he had these various organizations, the Tri-High Y and the High Y, and I think there's a Gray Y or something else. And then later on, like I said, I was there with Mr. Porter Davis. I was on the board at that time when he was there until, I'll repeat it again, Derrick, until they stole him down in Miami.
I think you got some explaining to do.
Well, actually, I heard that's where he went, Nikki. I just
Yeah.
never heard. I never heard from Mr. Porter Davis after he left.
Remember. I don't remember his name, but Miami is not as small as everybody thinks. So he could have been in the part of Miami.
I see Miss Lorraine is saying under Lee, they would have weekend dances in the 1955 until I don't know whenever, and said her mom chaperoned every Friday night. So
Yes, we had wonderful dances there.
Yeah.
And actually, it also served as a secondary venue to the schools. And, when you would have different kinds of talent contests and things like that, you could go to the Y. I remember I was one of the organizing members of the Cloverettes under the auspices of the Federated Women's Club. And we would have our banquets there at the YMCA. So it served also as a venue for things that we did in the community, not just for children, adults too, because there were some adult organizations around here that frequented and used the YMCA and supported the YMCA very much.
Thank you. And Dr. Kymrae, I wanted to kind of pull you into the conversation as well, because you're the granddaughter of Von Mizell. But your family name is connected to the Y, and I wanted to know if you could share, because there's some people who, they have family who is important in the community, but they may grow up and just do their own thing. So why is it important to you to still be connected to your family's legacy and the community? And if you could share a little bit about, some of your family history and, why is it significant for the Sistrunk area?
Yes, well, thank you. Well, I'd like to go back real quick to George and say that, the DNA is everything, how you're what's in your DNA. And so, I didn't know that I was this man's granddaughter. And I mean, he's just my granddaddy, I didn't realize that he was as amazing and as tremendous to the community as he was till I started, studying and reading about him. But because of course he was gone before I arrived, and I never had the opportunity to meet him. But, I think it explains who I am, why I am the way I am. I'm passionate about community development, community engagement, and even advocating, right? So I think DNA is just, it's so special in that, I wonder now, I used to wonder why do I do this, or why do I behave, or why do I, why am I so passionate about this, or this situation, or these types of situations and things. And now I'm like, oh, I get it now. I got it. I get it from him. So that is the first part, I guess, of your question. Let's see what else you were asking me about, the history. So the history, he even, his DNA comes from my great grandfather and grandmother. They were pioneers and built the first school for blacks back then, and were farmers. They had the first they were tomato farm and farmers and things, and first church for blacks. So he came from that, that DNA, and then he became this activist and passionate about social justice and um desegregating the community, and wanted equal rights for the community. So outside from him being super educated, super smart, and becoming the first black surgeon in Florida, he also was about the community. He didn't sleep, from what I hear. He was always doing something. And of course, Lillian, can speak to this because she was his right hand, would be working for him, and, was all in the trenches with what he was doing in every area of his life. So, he was just more than the first black surgeon. He was more than the co-founder of the Provident Hospital. He desegregated the beaches in South Florida. So they recently, and I know my panelists know this, but maybe someone who's listening doesn't. So I did want to share that, they did recently, I think it was 2016, name the former colored beach that was, once it was desegregated by him, and Eula B. Johnson. Eula, so he founded the NAACP chapter down here, and she was his she was, what do I want to say, his the next in charge of the NAACP. And so she was with him during that time when they were fighting to get the beaches desegregated. And although they desegregated them, they did not want to take the name of the colored beach area, or even the other. It was always the John U. Lloyd Beach, which was actually State Park, rather, which was actually the guy who fought my grandfather for years in trying to keep them segregated. So they finally in 2016, said, let's actually name this state park after Dr. Von Mizell and Eula B. Johnson. And so now it's the first state park in the state of Florida that is named after a black man and a black woman. So I'm very proud of that, just to add, some context to the work that he did for the community, the Sistrunk area and Broward County overall. He was just a hardworking man, and I guess that's why he never really, settled down with a family life, like being a husband, and he was just too busy for that.
Thanks for sharing that. Absolutely.
Lillian, did I do okay? You know.
The fact, the truth checker. Do we have your stamp of approval?
Yeah, I need you to co-sign.
I thought you weren't going to stop. But that's okay. You did pretty good. You did pretty good.
Oh my gosh. We have a couple of comments. Gabe, such wonderful stories. Emilia, love to hear the oral histories. Mark Russell, I enjoyed the history and the connectivity of community, as George stated, the DNA. Yeah, I love how that DNA just kind of took over the the program, which is awesome. Laura Lil, so very proud of this historical endeavor and the inevitable impact it will make. Thanks, cousin Kymrae, for continuing to carry the torch.
Oh, thanks, cousin.
Yeah, and let me see if I have anything on Facebook. We have Odessa Bennett, who's also on Facebook, saying those are great times. Absolutely. And I guess, Lillian, this question will be to you, or maybe Derrick, or whoever may want to chime in, because we spent a little time on the Y and Victory Theater, but I'd like to, like kind of circle back to the Provident Hospital, and why was it important to, because the YMCA is literally on that space, on that land. And so if you could share a little bit about, the Provident Hospital and the significance for it, in the community, and the difference, the impact that it made in the community.
I worked at Provident Hospital just 2 years prior to the hospital being closed down. I graduated from college in '62, and I was hired there by the director, Mr. Stern, to work in the library department. So I was one of the medical records librarians at Provident Hospital. It was a very nice, friendly place. Most of the people who were there already knew each other, and many of them were right in this immediate community here, right in this small area, because we had not yet started branching out further west during that time anyway. But Provident was a nice, friendly place. It was a wonderful place for people to work, and I think they enjoyed coming there to work at Provident Hospital. Everybody was very friendly with each other. Many of the people who worked at Provident Hospital went on to, after the hospital closed, they had to go to one of the district hospitals. Many of them went to Broward General. Some went up northern to Pompano, to the hospital in Pompano, but they still all stayed in touch and had those close ties to their Provident Hospital days. The hospital was relatively small. I don't know how many people remember or if they ever knew. They built later on the north side of the hospital another building which was called the Sistrunk Pavilion, because of all of the babies that Dr. Sistrunk had delivered. And incidentally, I'm a Dr. Sistrunk baby. I'm one of those babies that he says, "Oh, you look like one of my babies." I don't know how one of his babies looked, but I guess I did. He said I did. But anyway, there was a building in the back, and it also housed, talk about mixed use, it also housed some of the people who worked at the hospital for whatever reason, because I know the actual lady who was the director in the medical records library, her name was Lillian Scott, and she was from Missouri. Isn't that funny? Lillian Scott and Lillian Small, we're working in the same space. But anyway, in the back of the hospital was another building, and it was called the Sistrunk Pavilion. And that's where they started taking kids later on. Otherwise, the kids had been treated right there in the main facility, right where the new YMCA is being built now. But back on the back side, the north side, was the Sistrunk Pavilion. As I said, I don't know who else remembers that, but I do because I worked there. They had a nice cafeteria in there, and you got a chance to intermingle with everybody in the hospital if you so chose. And it was just a wonderful place to work. I didn't work there very long because I was stolen from the hospital by Dr. Mizell. I worked from the summer of '62 until March of '63 in the hospital. And I didn't know it, but he chuckled about it many times and said, oh, I just wanted you to get some experience back there in that room and learn how to do a little coding. And I knew you knew the vocabulary, being a science major. I knew you knew all of the vocabulary that you would be, but I wanted you to get some of that science coding so I could steal you. And that's exactly what he did. And that's when I started working for Dr. Mizell and left Provident Hospital several months before it actually closed, because it closed later on. But actually, even though I left the hospital, I was given a key to come in whenever I felt like it, or if I could, to still do some work. And I could go at night because people were working there at night. After I left Dr. Mizell's office, I could go right there to the hospital, go in the medical records room and do some work. That's what they thought about my work at Provident, and I enjoyed it very much so. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And we have on Facebook Odessa Bennett, who's the president of the Old Dilla Foundation, as well as a community partner for this chat. She said, my brother Bill Striggles left Provident when it was closed and went to the hospital in Pompano, North Broward Hospital, and became the first Black male RN in Broward County. I remember the pavilion.
Absolutely. He was, oh, such a gentleman. Such a gentleman. Yes, indeed. He passed pretty early, and that was very saddening to me. But I knew him and his wife. Yes. Odessa, you're there, huh?
Yeah, she's listening on Facebook. Yeah, absolutely. And I see
yes. Your brother was a doll. Your brother he was really a gentleman. Loved him. Yes.
I see Dr. Kymrae said our cousin Lorraine Mizell is also a cis-strong baby.
Yes. He delivered a lot of us. Yes.
I think a couple of years ago, I did a project with the Kiki, and they had several arts and history, and there was a play that was co-written by the children. Miss Sharon led them through it, and so it was at the African American Research Library, and the play was surrounding these kids from modern days going back to time and meeting three of the doctors. I think you might have been there because I thought it was so beautiful. At the front of the auditorium had some of the people who Dr. Sistrunk actually delivered. So I think you were there. It might have been there that day. It was maybe like 2019 in February or something like that. But
I was there. I was there.
Yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah, because I have a picture, and I love that, you know, Miss Sharon had the kids co-produce the play, and that they brought in like modern times, but then they went back and they learned, you know, a little bit about the history. So it was like based on facts, but it was, you know, a nonfiction play, and then to have that connection with
they did a fantastic job. I still have pictures in my camera.
Yeah.
I took pictures when they were performing. Yes.
Yes. Gabe was saying 200 people supported the kids play. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Absolutely. And George, I wanted to kind of like circle back to you in terms of you shared briefly about some of the art that you've done throughout South Florida. And a lot of it is still connected to history and legacy and Black excellence, and so could you share a little bit about, you know, why is that important for you as an artist? There's so many other things, and I know you do other types of art as well, but why is that type of work important to you?
Thanks, Niki. Yeah, that type of work is important to me because we know that unless we tell our story, the story may not be told the way it should be told. At the same time, and I'll never forget this, when the African American Research Library and Cultural Center was being dedicated, it was so telling, I guess, that one of the I can't remember the guy's title, but he was a high priest, if you will, from Africa, I think Benin, and I think part of the ceremony was his contributing or donating one of the bronze sculptures from Benin. And if you do some history, some research, there's bronze sculptures from Benin, which is, by the way, where the whole idea of casting work in bronze, you could go back centuries, and they're the ones who really, in part, perfected that. But the capturing of our history, from my perspective, I think it's just part of my um, my I'm going to say the word, my ministry, because it's important for me to know that when I leave this earth, that a part of me is in the work, and the legacy is there for men, women, boys, and girls to really see and understand. I love quotes. There's a saying that history is not history unless it's written down. Now,
Exactly.
it could be verbal. Yes, oral history is important, but we all know sometimes when those who know the history, we don't capture their story orally, we've got to capture it some way, somehow. So the sculpture, for example, at the African American Research Library, it's really connected with the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. Okay, the bridge is what the piece is called. So reading the text on it, then individuals will, okay, reflect back. Okay, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the Florida Memorial, Lift Every Voice and Sing, the sculpture that I did there, again connecting to the Negro National Anthem. So the work that I do is I think just part of my desire to make certain that it's not erased. Even in Pompano, there's at the E. Pat Larkin Community Center, the sculpture there, our family roots. When reaching out to the community there, it was stated specifically that they wanted to make sure that the work spoke to the boys and girls in the community as they grew up, that they understood that in Pompano, almost everybody belonged to each other in some way or another, because the migrations from the Bahamas, from Nassau, from the Carolinas, etc. And they said this: we do not want our kids to forget their family roots. So I do this because I believe it's part of what I need to do, to make certain that our story is told in some way or the other. And when appropriate, in terms of budgets, etc., doing it in bronze, particularly when it's an outdoor environment, bronze is like the Rolls Royce, because it will be around for centuries, and therefore our history won't go away. It'll be captured in the work, and our history.
Niki, can I add to that?
Oh, absolutely. I was going to turn to you next.
Yeah, because when George was talking about Dr. Eberhard,
That's right.
Was the Benin priest who was who donated several pieces for exhibits and for permanent sitting at the African American Research Library. And one of the things that he talked about with the bronze was very important to the Benin, because this is another exhibit they did one time by Babacar Mbo, and he did an exhibit and they called it Gina Foley. And in that exhibit, he was trying to teach that in Africa, they believe that when an artist creates something, this Gina Foley, or this spirit of the artist, actually becomes a part of that artwork. And whatever he's creating is like a spiritual substance that
I believe that.
is put into that art.
Yes.
And so that when others come, they can actually make a connection to that. In Benin, they not only have bronze statues, but they actually make the statues so people can touch them, because they believe you make a statue of a king, or you make a statue of a particular story, when that person comes and touches that piece, some of that genofolia, some of that spirit actually becomes a part of that person. And so when you're saying art, is really, you're making a connection, just like we're talking about that history of that glue, or when Diop was talking about that linguistic factor, that inside expression you find in there, that the art has a way to making that connection in you. And it probably does go all the way down to your DNA level, that is impressed inside of you. And Africa recognizes that. And with their art, they put the art there so you can make a connection with those people and be a part of it. Because like I said, if they put a statue, like if they put a statue up of the person who's the king, people will actually, if they can't get to the king themselves, they feel that they have access to the statue of the king. So it's makes that art gives them a connection. And so when we're doing art now, it's actually the person to make a connection with that, the history and the artist who creates that piece.
Mhm. Absolutely. And Niki, I would like to say that, I view art as a method of expression that tells a story. And that story can be told in so many different ways, whether it's through fabric or whether it's through drawing, no matter what it is. But it's like Derrick said, what we're doing now is an art, even though there's a language art. So art to me is so important in life, because without that, there is no history. History is the art of life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And I do have the president and CEO of the YMCA of South Florida, Cheryl Woods. She said, please let everyone know I'm listening in and so proud and honored. So thank you, Cheryl, for tuning in, but she wanted me to share that with everyone. The other question I wanted to pose to Derrick, and I guess George might be able to answer this too. In creating, like there's what are some ways that people may feel like, okay, there's a lot of art, in terms of like Mizell and Sis Trunk, some of the people that we know of. What are some ways that people can try to gather some of the information from their own family's history and legacy and connect it to art? Because I know, Derrick, you also was a part of the Old Dillard gallery, and Old Dillard Foundation as well. And so what are some of the ways, because there is some art that we already know and we see it, but what about someone who's saying, well, I want to try to create that for my family, for my legacy, or create that? Where do they start? What are some ways that they could kind of document? What are the things that they hold on to? There's so many stories. Like what makes their story important?
Yeah. Well, first of the thing you're saying that their story is important, because so often when we talk about the past, people, their first reaction is, if it's bad, let's cover it up. Let's not talk about it. Even like they're talking about it, let's move on. And what the true story of art tells you is that, you don't have to move on, you have to digest that. And art helps you to be able to digest that history and get it where you break it down and make it so it's something to help to build the future. So when people, first of all, they have to know is you got to start sharing some of the stories with others in your family. You need to open up. And then when you start sharing, I mean, we have so many ways now that share and let somebody turn on just their phone to record it. And once it's recorded, if it's, take pictures of people, you don't know how long that person is going to be here. Get some pictures of them, get some pictures or artifacts that they have, like touch them, like you touch some of the things that they had from the past. We were talking about how art, but even the artifacts they have, you want something you can pass on to the next generation so they can actually touch it. Because to me, it gives you that aha moment when you can actually touch and feel something that was from a person before you. Like we were talking about this, it's still something passes from that, from that person that had it before, and now you have it. You can actually touch that thing. So they should get those things, to tell those stories, and get that documentation of writing it down, videotape it, but have some way that you can save that and pass that on to the next generation. Because when the next generation hears it and it's something that is true, it, to me, does spark something that's deep down inside of them that says, wow, I really, the person is gone, but I've actually now touched that person through something that they had or through some story about that person. And you can see, like Dr. Mizell was saying, that, when you find out this other person in your history had some of those same things, it does give you that wow inside, like validate you to give you that or something inside of you kind of wakes up and says that kind of it's a validation, and that validation makes you go out and do other things. So to record them, transcribe them, and find a way to make them a part of, if they're find some of the museums, some of even the art projects that you do, go to them and then share some of the stories behind some. I know because Niki, you're often doing those collage things. Get it and make the collage and take it and share it to your family and tell them why these things you put in there are important, because it's really those stories that make most art important. It's not just the art, but it's what was trying to be expressed with that art that actually makes it important and makes it so future generations actually value it.
Derrick is right on point with that. My mother passed away in 2016, and my daughter, we were at my mother's house one day, and she said, "Grandma," she says, "I want to know your story." And she brought out the phone and she started videotaping my mom, and my mom told the story. So you're right on point, Derrick. Something just came to mind that you all can do as well, and that is, this is thinking outside the box. You've heard of time capsules, right? But time capsules don't necessarily have to be buried in the earth. Time capsule has photographs and tapes or documents, etc. That usually municipalities do this, and then 25 or 50 years later they dig up the time capsule. Well, why not do a time capsule and have it? In fact, at the City of Lauderhill, in their lobby is a mosaic time capsule that myself and another artist did for the City of Lauderhill. And inside that time capsule are documents. So your family heirlooms or photographs or things that really mean a lot to all members of the family, and a wonderful time to do it is at a family reunion. Make it an opportunity for the family to bring something that they want to be remembered by, and create time capsules, and don't bury them in the ground. Just make sure that they're in a safe place, and you can pass them on from generation to generation to generation. And 25 years later or 10 years later, you pull out the time capsules and you reminisce and you tell stories about the time what was in the time capsule.
Absolutely. And I think also, and Derrick kind of hinted to this, and you did as well. With modern technology, we have phones. We're able to create our own history and legacy and what we feel is important just with our own technologies. Right now, we're on Zoom, we're on Facebook, this will be on YouTube. And so I think it was Amelia who mentioned that this is oral history, but in our time, we could capture that oral history because, as things are passed down, like Lillian said, the truth and the facts, they kind of, they're not always the same, but when you have technology, you're able to capture that and go back to that and have an actual thing to pull from. So yeah, absolutely.
And learn how to protect it too. And when I say protect it, I mean, if you got photographs, a lot of people think, "Oh, I'm gonna take a photograph and I'm going to laminate it." Don't laminate photographs because the laminate is an acid, and that's actually going to eat away at that picture. It's better to go and even if you buy some of those cheap, what do they call those things? Pocket.
The little plastic sleeves.
Yeah, the little plastic sleeves that are polyview. It says archival. Put your photographs in those types of things so that they will actually last. Don't even get the pockets that if they don't say archival, don't put it in there, because usually when they don't say archival or doesn't cause sticking, that means that that type of plastic you're putting in has an acid base and it's eating away at it. And if you make a video of someone, save it several times so you have multiple copies of it. Don't just say, "Oh, I got it on my phone and I don't want to, and it's mine and I'm not going to share it." No, find some ways so you can save it and look at some of the formats that you're saving them in. And when you take pictures, I know a lot of people like to use JPEG pictures and save JPEG pictures. A JPEG is a type of format that always compresses. When you take something that's a JPEG, every time you save that JPEG, it goes through a little algorithm that kind of tries to make it smaller when it's saved. So each time you save it, you're actually making the picture less than it was before. So when you save it, use a format, they call them lossless formats. PNG has a lossless format. PNG has both. It has a format that you can make it where it's at the high level where it doesn't. And then PNG has one where it has a format that every time you save it is doing the same thing that a JPEG. With museums now, they're looking at the TIFF format, the TIFF format. Save some of your pictures in the TIFF format because the TIFF keeps all the information. When it's saved, the files are larger, but just buy some of the disk space for some of the things that are important to you and save it in those formats. So with all type of things, when you are talking about the artifacts, that you need to keep them sometime in something that keeps the bugs and the in the air and the light away from it, so you can have it for future generations. So learn how to protect the things that you want to pass down to the next generation. Because when George was talking about those, what do you call them? I forgot the name of them now. Those
Time capsules. Time capsules. Time capsules are usually made out of something that protects the things inside the time capsule. So even when you're thinking about the things you're getting, like your photos and all, I'm usually thinking, am I putting this in something that is going to help protect it and make it last for the next generation?
Yes, thank you. We have Facebook, Diane is saying, good to know, and Patricia West saying, a crash course in preserving family history. So yes, thank you. I think it's definitely important information for all of us to know, as we move forward, and for, many on the call who may want to start collecting and creating that legacy for themselves as well. So thank you for that. So I think, I'm just really enjoying the conversation. I'm so grateful for all of you that, that's here on the call, as well as, the people, all the panelists. Dr. Kymrae, I love Time Machine idea. Lorraine Mizell is asking if we can do neon lights on the wall of the Victory Theater and make it look embodied like the original theater. Actually, that is one of the concepts that we're playing around with, that wanting to put some neon. So we have to, see what's that going to look like, and what's, of course, there's a cost factor, but we're that's actually one of the ideas that we're all kind of excited about, to see about putting some neon, whether it's in the name of it or something incorporated on that wall. So yeah, so she's actually on point with that. So but yes, I could talk here all night, but I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. I want to thank all of the panelists. We have Derrick Davis, George Gadson, Gabriel Ochoa, Dr. Kymrae Mizell Hill, Mary Russ-Milligan, and Miss Lillian E. Smalls. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to give a special shout out to our community partners who, are helping to spread the word about it, and also, helping with some of the research and information. We have the Trailblazers of Broward, Old Dillard Foundation, Davis Coomba Arts, Create, Black Broward, and the Arts and History Ambassadors of the Lee Mizell YMCA Community Center. As well as, to the Y, thank you for creating this space. I love having conversations like this and getting to share stories, to learn stories, to uncover forgotten stories. Sometimes stories are intentionally forgotten, and sometimes people just don't know. So this has definitely been a beautiful night for myself as well, and enjoying everything. And thank you to the people who are in the attendees on Zoom, and we have on Facebook. If anybody wants to watch this, it's going to be on the Facebook under Niki Lopez Creative. I did post in the chat the next upcoming chat. So the next upcoming chat is going to be February 25th, and it's going to be a community oral history of Sistrunk. So we're really, please help to spread the word. We're really hoping to have people from the community come out, and it'll be a broader conversation. So, we want everybody to get an opportunity to share a piece of their own history or a piece of the Sistrunk history, that they have. So that's definitely something we're looking forward to. And like I said, on March 25th, we'll have the artist talk. I also put in the link, all the information will be on the What's Your Elephant website. What's Your Elephant is a program that uses the arts to create a safe space to talk about the unspoken. So I'm just, so honored to have an opportunity to work with the Y and work with everyone here, and to collaborate in this way to bring about this project. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
yes,
Niki,
absolutely.
for your hard work and really putting this together, because we all have busy schedules, and to grab folks with busy schedules to come together at this particular certain time, and you sending out all the notices, thank you. Phenomenal job.
Yes, Niki, that's one of the things I wanted to say. You're doing a phenomenal job in being a connector and connecting everybody, and we thank you so much. I do just want to just kind of like be really clear though, because I don't know if I feel like we're not really saying what we're doing this for, and we're doing this, community, because we want your buy-in. We want you to understand and be a part of this, and not say, once it's all up on the walls and we're done and, we're excited and we're thrilled with the work that's been done. We don't want you to say, hey, you guys didn't even ask me, or I have this, or I have that. So we are collecting photos, and you don't have to give us your hard copy. You can, email us, or so maybe there's a way, Niki, that, outside, maybe you can share how they can submit anything to us, so that they can kind of really, really understand what this is about. Yes, we've learned a lot about the history tonight, and it's been a great conversation, but why are we doing this? We really, really want them to be a part of this.
Niki, I would like to say thank you, first of all, for such a wonderful show tonight. And I would like to see this go even further. I would like to see it go into some of the churches, because that's where our history really started from back in the day. And so I think that would be a great thing if we can invite a church or to be a part of our show, maybe one at a time or something of that nature. And also in the school system, if we can reach the school system and get our children more engaged and understanding what history is all about, they would appreciate it a lot more and become more involved. Then their parents would be involved. So we need to find a way to bridge the gap and bring us all together.
Absolutely. Well, I wouldn't say that this is a start, because there's definitely instances of this that's been throughout, the county, Broward, and the Y has definitely did several projects similar in align with this, and as well as George and Derrick, myself, all of you have been in some form of history sharing, history making, legacy building in some form of fashion. So this is just one of those steps in that direction. But thank you, Dr. Kymrae, for mentioning and kind of centering why we're doing this. We definitely want to include as much as the community voice as possible, to get everyone involved, to get everyone excited and interested. Is everything going to be perfect? Probably not, absolutely not, but, I think that everyone that's a part of this project, and who's chipped in any way, has good intentions for trying to get as much as we can into, the capacity that we're doing. And so, and I do agree with you, Mary, that this is, needs to be in other places. So I did put in the Zoom and the Facebook chat, the link. There is a form if you have information specifically on the Provident Hospital, Victory Theater, and as well as the LA Lee Y that's been in the community for a number of years. But also, stories that falls outside of those, that next chat is going to be a great space for that. This is being recorded. So my intentions is, that the Y will have this, you all would have this. There's History Fort Lauderdale that's in our community in different places that we could have this type of, documentation and, seeing how it could get submitted. And I'm also open to other things, if someone else has an idea of like, hey, we need to get this video here or get this audio file there. I'm definitely into getting that feedback because it takes a community, right? So we're all, I may know one thing, you may know something else, he may know something else, but when we come together, we're able to make something really beautiful and impactful and magical and something that's historic. So definitely, anytime we're able to create more of these opportunities, we could seize that. We have Sunny. Oh, thank you, Nikki, Tara, Gabe. This was an amazing learning experience. You all rock this. Thank you. That was Sunny. So yeah, with that being said, I'm going to wish everyone, unless, someone else has some closing remarks to say, I'm trying to get us out by 8:30. We've been here for a little bit. Hold on, let me see what was on Friday. Oh, Miss Odessa, thank you for making this happen. Absolutely. So it's definitely, I'm so grateful for all the people that I get that helps me to make this possible and to move this forward, because I definitely could not do this whole big thing by myself. So I'm going to say good night unless anyone has anything else. And I will see you all on the 25th.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.